Oh, hey guys, what's up? perrydew07 here, and welcome to my newest episode of This Week in perrydew07 Sports Realm. We got some college football and some NFL action, Week 17. So I'm going to start right with the college football playoff. Playoffs, I guess that's the quarterfinals, which begins tomorrow. Which, of course, when Miami takes on Ohio State, of course that starts tomorrow night. But then on New Year's Day, which by the way, this coming Thursday. So, anyways, Texas Tech takes on Oregon, Indiana versus Alabama, and then lastly, Georgia takes on Ole Miss. Both SEC rivals going at it. So, I guess we'll see what happens on the result in those games are. So, we'll see. Now, now on to NFL Week 17, which started on Christmas Day. Which, by the way, I hope everyone had a wonderful Merry Christmas. So anyways, yeah, I hope everyone's Christmas was very very merry. So so oh, and with all that said, let's get on with it. Let's start with the Cowboys beat the Commanders by a score of 30-23. Then we have the Lions. Actually no, Vikings not only beat the Lions but eliminated the Lions from playoff contention 23-10. We have the Broncos beat the Chiefs in what could be Kelsey's last home game in Kansas City, 20-13. Then on to the two Saturday games. We have the Texans beat the Chargers, 20-16, and then the Ravens beat the Packers, 41-24. And then of course on to the Sunday games. We had the Seahawks beat the Panthers, 27-10, while the Patriots blowing out the Jets, 42-10. Then we had the Dolphins surprisingly beat the Buccaneers 20-17, which inviting an NFC South shootout, which I'll get to in a bit. Meanwhile, the Jaguars beat the Colts 23-17, while the Saints beat the Titans 34-26. We had the Browns shockingly beat the Steelers 13-6, while the Bengals blowing out the Cardinals 37-14. And then the Sunday afternoon games. There's two of them actually. The Giants beat the Raiders 34-10, which is sort of significant because aren't they supposed to be battling for the number one pick for next year's NFL draft? I'm just saying. So, anyways, while the Eagles barely beat the Bills 13-12, all thanks to a failed two-point attempt after a second touchdown from Josh Allen. And then the Sunday night game, we had the 49ers. 49ers beat the Bears in a Sunday night shootout, by the way, which was quite a shootout actually, 42-38. And then lastly, we had Falcons beat the Rams on Monday Night Football 27-24. Now, before I get to check see the playoff picture, of course, now here's as its fault. Wait, hold on. Oh shoot! No. Hold on. Crap. Hold on. Okay, of course that's sort of mixing with the Week 18 thing. Now here it is. Now the Saturday matchup we have the Panthers Buccaneers at Tampa. Now, which is sort of important because that could decide who wins the NFC South. If the Panthers beat Tampa Bay, then Panthers outright win the NFC South. However, if the Buccaneers win, and here comes the tricky part, they're going to hope for the Falcons. Then Panthers are going to hope for the Falcons to beat the Saints that Sunday afternoon, I believe. Which, if the Falcons beat the Saints, then the Panthers, despite the loss, could still win that division. However, if the Buccaneers win and the Saints beat the Falcons, then Tampa Bay becomes the division winners. So, so, yeah. I hope you all got another thing, and you know what else? They get the number 4 seed in the NFC, which meant they get to host at least one home playoff game. which is most likely going to be the wild card round. So we'll see. So we'll see what happens. Now on to another game. Seahawks travel to San Fran, take on 49ers. Whoever wins that game not only wins the NFC West, but also the number one seed in the NFC. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Texans. Texans played now, which is sort of because Houston and Jacksonville are playing for the AFC South title. Oh, and also Jacksonville is also playing potentially for the number one seed in the AFC. But of course, it all depends what happens in the Broncos-Patriots games. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, the Colts travel to Houston to take on the Texans, while the Titans travel to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. Now, of course, I'm going to go through some of the other random matchups here. Cowboys travel to East Rutherford, New Jersey to take on the New York Giants. While the Green Bay Packers, they pretty much had nothing else to play for other than playing as a seventh seed in a wild card round. By the way, they're traveling up to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Meanwhile, the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals going in the Ohio showdown. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, Saints travel to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Which that's the game that could decide who wins the NFC South between, again, just like I mentioned earlier, that could decide who wins the NFC South, pending on what was the outcome of the Panthers Buccaneers game. So we'll see. So anyway, meanwhile, the Commanders travel to Philly to take on Redskins travel to Philly to take on the Eagles, while the Dolphins travel up to New England to take on the Patriots, while the Cardinals travel to LA to take on the Rams, while the Chiefs travel to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders, while the Chargers travel to Denver to take on the Broncos, which, by the way, now again, Patriots, Broncos, these are the two teams that are fighting for the number one seed in the AFC. Now, of course, Denver clinches the number one seed with a win, with just a win. Now, if the Broncos lose and the Patriots win, then Patriots get the number one seed. Now, however, if both Broncos and Patriots lose, and then the Jaguars win, that means Jacksonville clinches the number one seed in the AFC. So yeah. Now, anyways, we have the Lions travel to Chicago to take on the Bears, and then the last of the 425 games, we have the Jets travel to Buffalo to take on the Bills. And then the Sunday night game, but there it is, the Sunday night matchup between Ravens and Steelers. Whoever wins that game not only clinches the division and but also gets the 4 seed in the AFC. Whoever loses, of course, goes home. So we'll have to watch the rest of the playoffs with the rest of us. So, anyways, I hope I managed to break this down clearly and fully. So I hope many of you will understand now. So anyway, thank you all for watching. Oyos, peace, and God bless. Oh, and have a great Happy New Year this week, everyone.